Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our July 29th Interim Committee of State Government, Interim State Government meeting, and we're glad you're here with us this morning. Appreciate everybody's time. Certainly we'll do everything that we can to not keep you too lengthy today. I know there's a lot of meetings going on. But before we begin today, I would first off like to ask everyone, please silence your cell phones, if you don't mind, please. And then before we call the roll, I'd like for everybody to stand, and we're going to pledge allegiance to the flag today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll at this time?
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Elkins, Senator Herron,
Here.
Senator Maiden, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills,
Here.
Senator Rawlings, Senator Tishner, Representative Baker, Representative Bivens,
Here.
Representative Branscombe, Representative Callaway,
Here.
Representative Chester Burton,
Here.
Representative Decker, Representative Donworth,
Here.
Representative Gooch, Representative Griffey, Representative Hancock,
Here.
Representative Hodgson, Representative Huff, Representative Imes,
Present.
Representative Cook, Representative Lehman,
Here.
Representative Chris Lewis, Representative Scott Lewis,
Here.
Representative Lockett, Representative Maddox, Representative Marzian, Representative Proctor,
Present.
Representative Raymer,
Here.
Representative Roberts,
Here.
Representative Tate, Representative Thompson, Representative Tipton,
Here.
Representative Watkins, Representative Williams, Representative Witten,
Here.
Senator Nemes,
Present.
Representative Johnson, Representative Hale.
Present. It appears today that we do have a quorum and we're constituted to do business. Before we get into the items of business today, does anyone have any guests that they would like to introduce this morning before we proceed? Representative Donworth.
Good morning. We have two representatives here from the League of Women Voters today, including a constituent of mine, Martin. Thank you all for being here.
Let's welcome them to our committee meeting this morning. Senator Tishner.
Thank you. I have an intern serving with me this summer. This is Carmen Parker, who just graduated from Shelby County High School and is going into the UK Law School.
Welcome, Carmen. Anyone else this morning? Well, I would like to take just a personal privilege for just a moment, please. I would like to welcome my new vice chair here today that has joined us from home, and he is, this is my grandson, Gavin Hale. Gavin is getting ready to go into the 4th grade, and he's excited about the legislature, and he honestly, he really likes politics. He really does. But would you please make Gavin, my grandson, welcome. Before we again have the first guest come to the table, remember when you're speaking, those that will come to the table, make sure that your mics are turned on with the green light, and then anyone here in the committee that would like to ask questions or comment, just make sure your lights are on so we can get a good audio of that. I would like first to my co-chairs, Senator Nemes and Representative Johnson. The last meeting that we had, I was not able to be here that. But I think I had a pretty good legitimate excuse, gentlemen, to my co-chairs. 3 days before our last meeting, me and my beautiful wife celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And so Sheila, my wife, is back there with us today, and I hope that was a legitimate excuse to be gone for a few days. But thank you all today for being with us. First item is we need an approval for the June 24th, 25 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 24th meeting? There is a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye. Any opposed likewise? Motion carries unanimous. Today, our first item of business is we have some representatives with us today from the State Board of Elections, and they are going to come and provide us an update on the voter maintenance list. And I would ask those that would come to the table, please make your way. So it looks like we just have one today. And as he's getting his PowerPoint prepared, sir, if you don't mind, would you please make sure your microphone is on there and introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. My name is Taylor Brown, the General Counsel for the State Board of Elections. I do have behind me Karen Sellers, our Executive Director, and Richard House, our Assistant Director.
All right. We'll allow them to stay where they want to if that's okay with them. But you may proceed, sir. Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the other chairs and the rest of the members of the committee for the opportunity today to speak about voter list maintenance in the Commonwealth. As you are aware, the State Board of Elections is the independent agency of state government charged with keeping Kentucky's voter rolls as up to date as possible, which is perhaps one of the most important tasks in all of a government that is designed to be by and for the people. Oh, sorry. There we go. In discussing the State Board's voter list maintenance efforts, we should first mention the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, more commonly known as the NVRA. The NVRA is a piece of legislation that covers a wide variety of election topics. But as it relates to voter list maintenance, the key...
Your green light on your
It
microphone.
is. Am I?
Yeah,
You
if
need
you
to
could
get a
do
little
that
closer.
There we go. Just a
go.
little closer so
Sure.
we could pick that audio up. Good. Thank
All
you.
right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No
You
problem.
Go right ahead, sir.
No problem. Call your attention to section 20507, which is on your screen. There you will see that in the administration of voter registration for federal office, each state shall, amongst other things, 1, ensure that any eligible applicant is registered to vote in an election, and 2, conduct a, quote, general program that makes a reasonable effort to remove the names of ineligible voters from the official lists of eligible voters. The NVRA goes on to tell states what the general program must do to comply with the federal law. First, the program established by the state must use change of address information supplied by the United States Postal Service through its licensees to identify voters whose address may have changed. Kentucky has established such a program through KRS 116-112. There, the State Board is required to do just what the NVRA requires. Use change of address information supplied from USPS or other sources to identify voters whose address may have changed. It is the State Board that is tasked with establishing this program because in the State Board's enabling statute, 117.015, it is the State Board, as an independent agency of state government, who is to supervise registration and purgation of voters within the Commonwealth. So where does the State Board get its change of address information from? Currently, Kentucky is one of 25 states who, along with the District of Columbia, make up the Electronic Registration Information Center, otherwise known as ERIC. ERIC is a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization that was created in 2012 by state election officials and which has always been fully funded and governed by the states who elect to participate. It is through Kentucky's membership in ERIC that the State Board receives USPS change of address information. In addition, ERIC provides Kentucky with reports from other states that show evidence of a voter possibly registering or getting a driver's license in another state, a report based off the Social Security Administration's Master Death Index file that may indicate that a Kentucky voter has died in another state, reports that analyze Kentucky's transportation records for newer information on voters, and a report that highlights what, if any, registrations on Kentucky's voter rolls may be duplicates. By no means are these the only sources of data Kentucky uses to gather information about voter registrations that may be out of date. All of these reports are valuable to the Commonwealth, not just the USPS report in conducting voter list maintenance. As you can see from the current slide, a number of states in our region are not members of ERIC, including all of the states we share a border with, minus Illinois. To have a meaningful exchange of voter data with these states that are not members of ERIC, the General Assembly has authorized the State Board to enter into agreements with other states to further voter list maintenance. To date, Kentucky has entered into agreements or had discussions about entering into an agreement with Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, North Carolina, and Florida, amongst others. By this time next year, we anticipate the list will be even longer. So, back to examining the specific laws around voter list maintenance. The NVRA requires states to establish a program that uses USPS change of address information to identify voters who may have changed addresses. In 116.112, the statute I just mentioned, Kentucky has done that. The program in whole largely mirrors what is described in the NVRA, and it includes instructions on what to do if an identified registrant is thought to have moved both within and outside of the county in which they are registered. And I'll describe the process more thoroughly in a minute, but for now I will share that in the last year, this program resulted in 225,311 ineligible voters being removed from Kentucky's voter rolls. The program described in 116.112 is not the only avenue under which the State Board of Election conducts voter list maintenance. Under 116.113, the State Board of Elections may remove a registration upon receipt of notification of death from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services or other reliable sources, upon notification from a circuit clerk that a person has been declared mentally incompetent, upon notification from a local or state jurisdiction that a voter has registered to vote outside the Commonwealth, or upon notification from the administrative office of the courts that a person has been convicted of a felony offense or has been excused from jury duty for not being a citizen of the United States. Under the provisions of the statute, between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025, the following removals occurred. 42,675 registrations were removed after notification of death. 578 people were removed upon a court's declaration of incompetency. 5,940 voters were removed following a felony conviction. 5,527 individuals were removed from Kentucky's voter rolls after the State Board received notification from a jurisdiction outside of the Commonwealth that the voter had registered to vote there. And 223 removals occurred after the board was notified that a registrant indicated they were not a U.S. citizen on a jury questionnaire. In addition to these removals, 746 former voters requested they be taken off our rolls, and 3,381 registrations were found to be duplicates, which were also removed. As a side note, if a voter feels they have been erroneously registered to vote in Kentucky, they can cancel their registration with a form found on our website, which is on your screen right now. All of these sources of removals totaled 284,381 for the period between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. As you can see, that means that our total voter registrations have decreased over the last year by 169,000, roughly 169,000. It also means that the number of voters registered in Kentucky is under the latest Census Bureau estimate for what the state's voting age population is, something that was not the case as recently as February 1st, 2023, just before the State Board conducted the first NVRA purge program of voters in over a decade. This shows that the State Board of Elections voter list maintenance efforts are effectively cleaning the Commonwealth's voter rolls, and clean voter rolls are good for all Kentuckians. Now I want to show you how our KRS 116.112 mirrors NVRA language as to the process. If it appears that a voter registered in the state of Kentucky has moved, we send them a postcard. What type of postcard they get depends on the kind of move, but the postcards largely look alike. You can see them on the slide or on the screen right now. With their names owing to the sections of the NVRA where the types of postcards are codified, a mover may receive either an 8C1 or an 8D2. And I realize it's too small probably to see, but you have the 8C1 on the left and the 8D2 on the right there. Both cards allow a voter to verify or update their registration information, but the 8C1 is sent to a voter who is thought to have moved within the same county, while the 8D2 is sent to a voter thought to have moved outside of the county or outside of the state in which they are registered. If a voter fails to respond to the 8C1 card, nothing happens to that voter's record. If a voter fails to respond to an 8D2 postcard and then fails to vote in any election that occurs in the time between the next two federal elections, that registration record will be purged. The two federal elections being the prescribed time period in both the NVRA and 116-112. To reiterate, both cards look very similar and are both returnable, forwardable, correctable, postage prepaid postcards. 8C1s go to voters thought to have moved within their county, and 8D2s go to voters who are thought to have moved out of their county. Now here's what happens with an 8C1. The postcard is sent to the address the voter is thought to have moved to within the county. If the voter confirms an in-county address other than what is on the postcard, because the postcard has been forwarded, the voter's record is updated to the new in-county address. If the voter confirms the existing address on the postcard, the registration is left unchanged. If the postcard gets forwarded to another address outside of the county, the postcard also instructs the voter how to cancel or update their existing registration. If the voter takes no action after the receipt of an 8C1, the registration is assumed correct. If the postcard is returned to the state board as undeliverable, the registration is given what is known as a, quote, return mail date. That will be used for further list maintenance. Now here's what happens with an 8D2. The postcard is sent to the address outside of the county in which the voter is registered, where it is believed they have moved to. A postcard is also sent to any registration that has the return mail date that I just mentioned. On the date that the postcard is sent, the registration is given what is known as a, quote, inactive date. If the voter confirms they did not move, their existing address and registration are deemed correct, and their inactive date and or return mail date are removed. If the voter confirms they moved to another county in Kentucky, the appropriate county clerk is notified and the voter's record is updated. If the voter has moved out of state, they can return the card to cancel their Kentucky voter registration or go online to expedite the process. If the postcard is returned to the State Board of Elections as undeliverable or otherwise creates no action from the voter, the NVRA and KRS 2 federal elections clock continues to tick. If the voter does not vote in any election during this period or does not initiate some other action with their registration, such as a change of address or change of name or change of party, they will be removed from our voter rolls after those two federal elections. Now here's a graphic that shows a flow chart on how the most common 8D2 scenario plays out, and you can also find this on our website. You'll see it starts with a notification of a change of address, an 8D2 being sent, and no action for 2 elections, resulting in purgation, while any action during that time does not result in purgation. Finally, as you may be aware, the State Board presents monthly to the Kentucky County Clerks Association. We actually will do that tomorrow. County clerks are the boots on the ground conducting the actual voting in each of our 120 counties. As such, they are often one of the first election officials to hear questions from constituents about voter list maintenance. Here you will see some reminders that we have given the clerks to answer these type of questions. Number 1, it is perfectly normal for voters to get a postcard at their address for a former resident. It is a good thing because it helps to make sure our voter rolls are as up to date as possible. The process does take some time, however, because we do not want to remove any registration that has not proven to be inactive. And for nearly a decade, voter list maintenance was not performed as it should have been in the state, so we are still catching up. 2, it is perfectly normal for a voter to get a postcard addressed to themselves. Again, this helps guarantee that we have the most up-to-date records possible. 3, just because a voter receives a postcard does not mean they have been purged. It is just one step in the state's voter list maintenance process. And finally, 4, No voter registration is removed under this process solely for a person's failure to vote. And I think that's important to repeat. A failure to vote does not result in a purgation. It must be proven to have been inactive over the course of at least 2 federal election cycles. In sum, this has been a brief primer on what voter list maintenance looks like in Kentucky today. In February 2023, the first time we conducted a purge pursuant to the NVRA and KRS programs, we removed over 127,000 registrations from Kentucky's voter rolls that had proven to be inactive with the process I just described. Many, many more will come off in the years to come as more federal election cycles pass. Since 2020, the State Board has sent out over 1 million postcards, so you can expect our rolls to get more accurate year after year. And accurate rolls can only help boost citizen confidence in the integrity of their elections. Meaning, again, clean voter rolls are good for all Kentuckians. And with that, I'd like to again thank everyone for the opportunity to have this discussion today and let everyone know that I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, but we're also always available to have further more substantive conversations about voter list maintenance or any other election-related topic with any member of this committee or the General Assembly and as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate your presentation today. I thought it was really important today for us to bring in the folks from the State Board of Elections to give us an update, and your information was very good. I have to admit I couldn't hardly read none of it, but anyway, I do appreciate the information that you give to us, and you detailed it very well. Ms. Sellers, thank you very much. You've been before our committee before, and thank you for y'all's work. I have a couple questions, but I have a bunch of questions here from people, and so I'm going to go down the list. And if you could do this for me, I'm just going to ask you to confine your question to one question and then a short follow-up, because right now we've got 9 people in the queue right now. So we will start with Representative Proctor. You are first on the list, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. You were talking about that there's 223 people who are removed they get excused from jury duty as non-citizens. Mm-hmm. So my question is, how are non-citizens getting on the voter rolls in the first place?
So this process is relatively new for us, the non-citizen jury questionnaire process. We have forwarded all of these to the Attorney General's office to further investigate. I don't know if all of these, we'll find out when I come back this time next year. I'll hopefully have an answer from you after the AG's office has been able to look at this. Is this a case of someone just trying to get out of jury duty? Is this a case of 223 non-citizens somehow registering? I don't have that answer yet because it's new, and the Attorney General's office, like I say, has not fully investigated these yet.
That really didn't answer the question on how are they getting registered to begin with?
Well, what I'm saying is I don't know that they are non-citizens. They very well could be just people trying to get out of jury duty. I don't know.
Thank you.
Senator Mills.
Thank you, Taylor, for your presentation. And Representative Proctor just asked the same question I was going to ask. And I appreciate your response. We look forward to what you find out over the next year.
Yeah, same.
Senator Nemes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there an alternate or an additional service to ERIC? And do states that we have reciprocal agreements with, how good is that working? Do we get good information from them? And are there other services for that? Because a lot of times when you work with another state, they have different departments and this and that, and you're only getting 1 or 2 things from them.
Thank you, Senator. To the first part of your question, no, there's not an organized collaboration of states other than ERIC working towards the NVRA's list maintenance goals. To the second part of the question, this also is somewhat in its infancy. We have only had meaningful exchanges with 2 of our states so far, but I would say I think those are productive it's a little more work for us doing it as a one-off one-off with each of these states as opposed to having the centralized ERIC process. But it was very important to us, and I think to members of the General Assembly, when all of our border states minus Illinois left ERIC, that we still had some way to reach out to these states. So thank you for giving us that ability.
I failed to thank you for what you do, and you catch a lot of heat for when we in the general public say you're not doing enough and how did these people get on the voter rolls and this and that. And you all do a great job trying to keep people off the voter rolls that shouldn't be on there. And many of these people that are on there and should not be, they were there a long time, not that you put them on. You're trying to get them off. So I want to thank you for the great work that you do, and we'll work with you on your suggestions of making it better.
Thank you, Senator.
Co-Chair Johnson.
Thanks, sir. First off, thanks for being here today. I appreciate all three of y'all making it in today. I know the schedules are tough right now, so appreciate the effort. First a general comment, and this goes along with what Chair Nemes was saying. The balance of making sure that voters get to vote that want to vote versus a system that we can trust with integrity, that's a tough balance, and you guys do a great job of it. I wouldn't want to be in your job, to be honest, because you can't win. No matter what you do, somebody's not happy, so appreciate that. You should run for election in that case. My question is, and you may need to think about this and get back to me, but are there any statutory impediments to being able to do what you want to do to clean the voter rolls up?
We've got some ideas, yes. And speaking of, we're always available outside of this setting. Yes, so I keep a list, a running list of things I think that we all do, things that will help improve elections in Kentucky and our voter list maintenance efforts. So yeah, welcome that conversation.
Well, let's make that a priority. You started off by saying that it was a reasonable effort is the standard for voter maintenance. Reasonable is a pretty nebulous term. So my attitude of reasonable is every single thing we can possibly do. So let's make sure we get together before the session, see what we need to do during the session to help you guys do your jobs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Taylor. And I want to assure you I'm not going to ask you about county lines today.
Thank you.
I've got a real-world example. Yesterday afternoon, left Frankfort, looked at the clock, realized my daughter off work, so I give her a call. She just moved to Florida about a month ago. She was excited. She's got her new license plate for her vehicle, and she talked about she's got to get her driver's license, and we talked about her registering to vote. Now, and I mentioned to her, well, we need to make sure you get off the rolls in Kentucky. And as I understand your presentation, you have this agreement with the U.S. Postal Service for a change of address. Mm-hmm. So that's one possible avenue you all could be notified. Mm-hmm. As I understand, Florida is not a member of ERIC, and you do not have a reciprocal agreement with them. So when she registers to vote in Florida, you will not know that, correct?
As of today, we are in discussions with Florida. Their legislature, obviously, all legislatures have different schedules, but their legislature, we were waiting to see what they were going to do before they adjourned. Now they have adjourned. I actually spoke with their executive director just last week about signing an agreement with them. So hopefully we'll get that here in the next month or so, and we'll capture her.
Okay, just a brief, quick follow-up. So really the best option for her right now is just to reach out and ask to have herself removed from the Kentucky rolls. But most voters probably don't think about that.
Right.
So that's why so the other roll would go to the postcard and the 2-year federal election delay to actually be able to get somebody off who's moved out of state, who you've been notified. Am I correct in that?
That's one way. If we didn't have an agreement, yeah. If we're talking, I don't think Wyoming is in Eric, if we're talking Wyoming, right? We don't have an agreement with Wyoming yet. So the individual that would move to that state, for example,
Okay.
the only avenue we have right now is the postcard system.
Are states willing to talk to you all
Oh, yeah.
about these reciprocal
Yeah,
agreements and
yeah.
cooperate?
We've had a lot of openness from everybody we've approached, and luckily we've been able to craft these agreements that I think are very beneficial for Kentucky.
Okay. Well, thank you. And just so members know, when I talked to my daughter, it was 87 in Florida yesterday.
There's 100 in Tampa for the first time ever. Yeah.
Senator Rollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've read a number of articles that are critical of Eric. How would you respond to the accusations? I read one old article that said at least 9, and I believe red states had left Eric. How do you respond to allegations that it's partisan?
Sure. So what's interesting is I mentioned last week speaking with Florida, we were at the National Association of State Election Directors Conference, and piggybacking on that was an Eric annual meeting of states where they actually approved new bylaws to address those concerns. And one of those concerns that led to those 9 states removing themselves from Eric was the requirement that member states had to send out what is known as an eligible but unregistered postcard, which was another cost for us because we were talking in the hundreds of thousands of postcards that Eric would identify as individuals that we might need to reach out to be a member of Eric. And basically those 9 states at that time said, we can't afford to do this. Lose that or we're out. Kentucky at the time was under a federal consent decree that required us to be in Eric, so we didn't have really that position. We couldn't have that position at that time. But anywho, like I say, at the meeting, the bylaws were amended, and that is no longer a requirement to be a member of Eric that you send that postcard. So we don't have to do that anymore. We don't have that expense. Elections are always about money. I know everybody that comes before you all claims that they don't have enough money, but I'll take just this one opportunity to say elections don't have enough money either. In a perfect world, the postcard, the money wouldn't be an issue. I think that was a lot of the issue for those 9 states was being forced to spend money on something that might not have gotten the return rate might not have been there for those states.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Dunworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your report. This was very helpful. I am concerned about the duplicate, people who were removed for duplicates. I was named after my mother. I had the exact same name, the exact same address. I also have a cousin with the same name who lives at another address. I'm a little bit concerned about duplicates. Obviously, we have a lot of people who share the same names. Are they contacted in any way, or how do you determine the accuracy of a duplicate?
So we've got we're not just going by, name and address. We're going by name, address, date of birth, social, if we have it. We don't have currently a full social for every voter in Kentucky. That's one of the issues we might need to talk about to clean up our voter rolls to help alleviate concerns such as this for one reason. But no, we're going granular on a granular level, all the information we can get about such an individual. I won't sit here and tell you that we're 100%. I'm sure there are voters out there that may have had this occur to them, but that doesn't stop their ability to vote. They can still show up at the polls on election day, say, I'm Taylor Brown, I'm here to vote, and if the poll worker says, well, you've been removed, again, it'll stay in that inactive status for 2 federal elections. Maybe I don't go to vote for 2 federal elections. I can still vote. It's called a provisional vote. I can still vote provisionally. I can still appeal that status of my registration to the local county board of elections, which again, this legislature made easier in the last cycle by allowing these hearings to be conducted via Zoom or telephone. So again, thank you all for that. But to answer your question, we're very cognizant that issue exists, and I don't want to remove anyone that shouldn't be removed. I'll say that, but the other part of that is there are backstops if, unfortunately, that does happen.
Okay. Thank you. I share your concern. I want to make sure that everybody who is eligible to vote has their constitutional right to do so,
Absolutely.
while also maintaining our election security. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Hodgson.
How's that? Okay. Thank you for your work, Taylor. I know y'all have removed a great many people from the rolls, including 11,000 people who've been dead for decades. And the members of this committee were essential in passing several provisions last year in House Bill 44 that have now been enacted. I just wanted to clarify, under law, under House Bill 44, if Eric were to try to require us to register eligible but unregistered voters, we would not be able to enter into that contract under law, right?
Correct. That was, so we are now free from the consent decree, and that was a big issue in this amending of the bylaws for Kentucky this time.
Okay. And also under the provisions of House Bill 44, all this information is available at a granular level on your website about removal statistics, why, and how to remove yourself. And that's all fairly new, correct?
Correct. There's I think, a treasure trove of documents and numbers on our website, and I would encourage everyone here, anyone that might be watching online or on TV, to go to elect.ky.gov and dig around and look for yourself. Yep.
Can I ask you to explain just briefly the ability to look up an address and see who's registered there?
Sure. So we now, after legislation last year, have on our website, and it's also available at every local county clerk's office, a list of, by county, every address. So you'll have 123 Main Street, and it will tell you at 123 Main Street there are 3 active voters. There's 1 inactive voter. At 456 Main Street there are 3 voters. So citizens can go on, look up their address, and know, well, that's why I'm getting this postcard for John Smith. He's still listed as an inactive voter. And if you really want to dig into it, watch the numbers, and that's one way you can see this process working, seeing the numbers go down on that spreadsheet as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Representative Marzian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Very excellent. And you're right, clean voter rolls save us all money, because then we're not sending out info to the dead people. But sometimes they do vote for me. but I have just a couple of questions. How much is it? I know it costs a lot. These postcards that you send out to your rolls, that you're looking at people that may or may not be legitimate. How much does that cost you all?
I will defer to Karen for a number.
So the biggest charge on the postcard is the postage. And it is a double-sided postcard. So every year we may spend up to $100,000 or more on sending the cards out. And again, when we sent cards out recently, we tried to send them out before the postage went up I think it just went up in the last month.
It did.
So we were really pushing to try to get that done, to try to save money on the postage. But it is a significant expense. And just to tack on what Taylor said about the eligible but unregistered, we've not done that card now for a few years, because we actually did a letter to Eric, to the board, and we made a good case why we do not need to do that in Kentucky, and they recused us from that process. So we were glad. So even if it should come up in the bylaws again, Representative Hodgson, we won't have to do it because we've been recused by the board members of ERIC to do it. So I just thought I would add that.
Thanks for that. And one other question I had.
Quickly.
You purged, you said 200 and something thousand. And do you have a breakdown on, is that Green Party, Democrats, Independents, a breakdown of who that is?
We haven't done one of those. I sometimes get in trouble with promising that the tech team can do everything under the sun. I think they should be able to do that. And if you'd like something like that, we can put something together.
At some
for
point,
that.
that'd be great.
Sure.
And I just had one quick question. Do you think there'll ever be where I'm in Jefferson County, there'd be the technology that if I'm vacationing in Red River Gorge, I could vote there?
My guess would be not.
Yeah,
No?
we'd have to rewrite the entire election.
We certainly
code.
hope not.
Yeah.
Well, with the technology, you think you'd be able to?
100 years, I don't know. But,
Okay.
it would require a substantial. I mean, we'd probably have to, like I say, rewrite the entire election code in Kentucky.
Okay. Well, keep those dead people on the polls, okay?
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
rolls.
We have one more question, and then we definitely have to move on. Representative Roberts, you get to ask the last question, and if you have a follow-up, you may do that.
Thank you for presenting on this issue. I think this is an important issue to all of us on the committee. I just wanted to follow up on Representative Proctor's question about people who are not eligible getting registered in the first place. I just wanted to see if you have, what are the minimal safeguards in terms of reviewing registration to ensure that if someone is not eligible, whether felon, non-citizen, so on and so forth, what processes does the State Board of Elections or county clerks have to reject those to ensure that those illegal registrations are bounced before an election happens?
Sure. So currently, the law says that anyone that registers that is not a citizen, you have to be a citizen, right, a resident of Kentucky, et cetera, and you're swearing to all of this under penalty of perjury. It's a felony, Class D felony. If someone goes the paper route, that's probably the avenue that I would say, a paper registration. That's probably the weakest right now to stop such a registration. But that also goes back to what I was saying with Representative Johnson, that there's ideas that we've got that would strengthen or weaken the ability for a non-citizen to register in Kentucky, and I'm happy to discuss those with you.
Yeah, can you tell us like what you think would help strengthen our
Sure.
ability to prevent this from happening?
So I think I mentioned it earlier. We don't have full social security numbers for every voter in Kentucky right now. As a matter of fact, our current statute says that you're not required to list a social security number to register to vote. If we had the full social for all our voters, there are various programs that we could plug into to run checks on citizenship status. That would also require another change in the legislature granting the state board the ability to do that, to be an agency that looks at citizenship status. But that's one way.
What percentage of registered voters do not have a Social Security listed right now?
Yeah, I'd say we probably have somewhere in the mid to high 90s of socials for our voters, but we're out of 3.5 million. That 5% is still a good number.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for your presentation today. We really appreciate it, and you answered all of our questions. And again, thank you for your work of cleaning up our rolls along in conjunction with our Secretary of State. You're all doing a great job, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Moving on today to our second presentation, we have some representatives with us today from the Personnel Cabinet that are going to provide us an update on the state employee health insurance plan. So if you gentlemen would come and make sure your green light is on at your microphone, and are you going to be giving us some presentation?
Good morning. I'm Robert Long, Deputy Secretary of the Personnel Cabinet. And my partner here is Chris Chamness. He's the commissioner of the Department of Employee Insurance, and he's grabbing the presentation. He'll be the primary presenter.
All right, sir. You may proceed at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to the chairs, the vice chair, and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about the health plan today. I want to start just at a high level. This is a health plan that is administered by public employees for the benefit of public employees. And that includes, I'm aware, many of you in this room, as well as, LRC staff. We're tremendously proud of this plan, and we hope you are too. We administer health and flexible spending benefits for over 300,000 Kentuckians. Half of those members are school board employees. We have KEHP plan holders in every Kentucky county. And as part of that, I just want to mention, our membership is incredibly stable over time, which is very helpful to us as we try to be very assertive in contract negotiations. And our scale allows us to get very competitive pricing in the marketplace. This is a zoom in of really plan holder enrollment trends year to year. So these are the primary account holder, if you will, for the plan. As you see, we do have a little bit of a U-shaped trend, but the percentage change year to year is relatively small. You're talking about maybe 2.5% or so. Again, that stability really is helpful to us as we go into procurement for services. Likewise, our covered lives, this would include dependents, spouses, and children on the plan, are also relatively stable and follow the same trend line. To orient you to this slide, these are kind of our net payments and the just total number of claims by year. So the red line reflects the total number of claims processed by our administrators on behalf of the plan, both medical and drug claims. And then the total spend is reflected in the blue bars down below. I will note that this is net spending, but it doesn't factor in drug rebates, which are through a whole separate process that are a credit to the plan, and that is good. As you all know, we wish there might be a bit more transparency in that space, but we do know that those rebates are helpful to plan financials. If you've seen a presentation from us before, you're familiar with this slide. We're really proud of what we call our dollar slide here. This shows, namely, that we're being very fiscally responsible, trying to maximize the amount of value back to our members. So for every dollar that the plan takes in, over 92% is paid right back out in terms of claims. There are some administrative expenses, as any plan would have, but we're proud of the fact we're a highly efficient plan, making sure that we're maximizing member dollars to the extent we can. This is a new slide from us. As you may know from prior presentations, we've really focused on prevention and screening the past several years. And we're really excited to see that focus in communication and education is paying off. What you're seeing year to year is we're seeing an increase in cancer screenings across the board, and we're now far exceeding Anthem's benchmarks in all of these areas. We realize that there's more work to be done, but early screening and early detection is critically important to improve member health outcomes, member survivability. And then, of course, there's also a fiscal impact to the plan as well. The earlier these conditions can be caught and treated, the better it is for the plan and certainly for the member. Likewise, we're seeing an increase in wellness visits. So think of your annual physical. In all demographic areas, we're seeing year-over-year improvement in these numbers, and we're now beating Anthem benchmarks in this space as well. We still have some work to do in this space, obviously, especially among certain constituencies, and we're continuing to strategize communication and education strategies to try to convince people to get into their doctor early and often, so that they can be as healthy as they can be. Looking at medical and pharmacy trends year over year, so medical costs change year to year is reflected in the blue bar, pharmacy in red, a combined percentage in the green. As you see, COVID was certainly an impact. We then had a rebound. That rebound continues through 2024 in terms of increased utilization. Our plan is not unique in this regard. We understand from Anthem and our consultants at Aon that the plan is following broad-based U.S. trends in general in terms of increased utilization. And that's certainly something we're going to continue to keep an eye on in the years to come. Speaking about our expectations for the second half of this year and beyond, this slide hasn't changed much. The reality is that inflation costs for medical spend are high. They are increasing, in fact. And we're also seeing increased drug spend. We've talked before about GLP-1 drugs for diabetes and weight loss. That continues to be a large new cost driver for the plan over the past couple of years. We continue to collect data on that drug class specifically, and over time we'll be able to hopefully provide some specific insights on that. But we're also seeing increased medical spend. So chronic conditions are certainly an issue that we deal with. Our plan members follow broad-based demographic trends in terms of increased rates of cancer, cardiovascular conditions like hypertension, cancer rates, and of course diabetes as well. We continue to do what we can to incentivize healthy behaviors through our wellness program to try to combat some of those demographic trends. We also see high-cost claimants be a driver of increased plan spend. Certainly, the cost of acute care continues to rise at a large rate. The plan is not unique in having that challenge, but it's certainly there. And then a bit of good news. We continue to see increased utilization of behavioral health. That does mean that there's a spending component, but that also means people are getting behavioral health services when they need them. That's ultimately we view as a good thing. That means that people are getting the care they need so that they're not having some sort of acute behavioral health event. That also should be helpful in terms of substance use and other issues as well. In terms of our plan design for this year, you will note that we didn't have any increase to the employee or employer premium for 2025. We also haven't had any recent changes to our copays, coinsurance, deductibles, or max out-of-pocket amounts in recent history. We now offer 4 separate plans on the medical side, 3 of which we've held for a number of years: the PPO, the consumer-driven health plan, the basic version of the CDHP. That's a lower premium but higher deductible offering. And then new for 2025, we also offer a high deductible health plan. That was in response to a budget language passed by the General Assembly asking us to include that as a plan option. That would be our lowest premium, highest member cost share plan available. Speaking of prevention and education, our wellness fair effort was revamped and really restarted in 2024 under the direction and leadership of Secretary Bailey. That focus has been on prevention and education, and we have seen resulting increases in engagement for various programs that we hold, as well as for health clinics that we operate, including one health clinic here in the Annex building. We also, at those events, offer biometric screenings, information booths from various vendors. We partner with various entities, including the Department of Public Health. This year, we have hosted, or there's one more event that we are hosting, 4 fairs in state office buildings. We had an event early this year at the Capitol Education Center. We had an event at the Administrative Office of the Courts, as well as an event last month at the L&N building in Louisville. So in terms of a program spotlight, we try to find programs that really provide a win-win for the plan and for our members. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're focused on programs where members get a higher touch, higher wraparound service that is of value to them, but the plan can also realize savings. And so we're proud of some of the programs that we've rolled out, one of which we've spoken about in presentations before, Hinge Health. That's a telehealth-based physical therapy and musculoskeletal health program where we're seeing a 3.4 times ROI, and 78% of our members who engage in that program achieve clinically significant pain reduction. That program we also see in data has been able to offset some of our surgical spends, which is why you access such a good degree of return on investment there. Likewise, Anthem, our medical third-party administrator, has been a good partner to the plan. Our cost trend is actually a little bit better than their benchmark for the cohort that needs that higher level clinical intervention. These are members that have significant chronic conditions or prescriptions that need a higher degree of wraparound care. And so there are nurses and other clinician support that are provided to them in addition to their doctor and specialist. And as you see, the results actually do result in positive movement on their medical risk score, going down from 6.14 to 4.91 on the most recent data from Anthem. And then lastly, we have a program called Smart Shopper. That's a shared savings program that incentivizes positive member behavior. Basically, if you go out into the marketplace and you find lower cost providers for screenings, think an MRI or a colonoscopy, we actually cut a check back to the member for a portion of that savings. So the plan is realizing savings and the member gets money back in their pocket. Not surprisingly, members really like that program. We have a 95% satisfaction score for that program. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on our decision process. So what we're trying to balance here is we're trying to balance fiscal responsibility. And as fiduciaries to the plan, we're always trying to maximize plan value, but also keep premiums as low as we can, but also recognize member needs and that members, are concerned about their day-to-day paycheck, whether they're going to be able to afford premiums, whether they're going to be able to afford their deductible or max out of pocket. We are a data-driven organization, and so we look to industry benchmarks and our own plan and claims data to strategize the most effective ways to have a positive health plan. Each plan year stands alone fiscally. And as you know, premiums are set as part of the biennium budget process. And that way we also ensure that, there's stakeholder engagement and fiscal engagement, including from this body as we set premium rates. Lastly, I just want to thank whoever on this committee and beyond who are members of the plan. If there are ever any concerns about the plan and service, I hope you reach out to us, including to our member services department. But certainly if there are policy and other concerns, please feel free to reach out to me and the staff directly. We want to make sure that we're responsive. The business of insurance gets more and more complex, which means that the member experience gets more and more complex. We want to be here to help and support our members in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on this? Representative Whitten.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I just had a quick question. I know that providing GLPs is somewhat new, and obviously that's going to cause a higher cost. Have you all established if there is a savings on the back end, or when you can expect to see if that higher cost is actually making Kentuckians healthier?
Yeah, thank you, Representative, for the question. We are studying that right now. As you mentioned, especially the uptake in these drugs is a relatively new phenomenon just in the past couple of years. And so what you're talking about is you're talking about a data project where there's something of a long tail in terms of seeing those benefits in spend will take several years, we believe, to realize, if at all. But that's an ongoing data project we have, and hopefully I can come back in the future with a more concrete answer for you.
Anyone else? Thank you all this afternoon. Well, it is afternoon, but thank you for being with us and your presentation. I would just like to say, on behalf of one of those 300,000 members, thank you. That we're glad there was not an increase, a rate increase this year. And I know I speak for all those. I do want to ask you one really quick question. Could you go back to slide 10, please? Slide 10, just real quickly on there at the increased medical spending, and you touched on the behavioral health aspect of that just briefly. Could you just give me just a little bit, maybe a little more in depth on that?
Yeah, certainly. So in the COVID time period, we certainly saw a ramp up, I think, as there were a number of different stressors during that time period. But we've seen sustained increased utilization there. We offer behavioral health services, of course, through brick and mortar providers, but also through telehealth services, including Live Health Online. We find that the telehealth utilization is part of the main driver, either because of convenience or just because folks don't want to go to a face-to-face meeting, but would like to have a telehealth visit. And because we provide some of those services at no cost, we think those are the elements that have led to positive movement there.
So just real quickly on the follow, have those telehealth visits increased considerably since the COVID time?
They have, and if you'd like some specific numbers, I don't have them with me today, but okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you, gentlemen. We're glad you're here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And finally today, we move to our last presentation. We have with us today Representative McPherson and also a representative from the Kentucky Nonprofit Network, and they are going to provide us an update. I've asked them actually to come to our meeting today concerning House Bill 622 from the 2025 regular session, which actually got a lot of attention but didn't seem to make it across the finish line. So if you both would please identify yourself for the record, make sure your green light is on, Representative McPherson. I know you know that routine, but ma'am, make sure your green light is on, and then please introduce yourself, both of you.
Sean McPherson, State Representative, 22nd District.
My name is Danielle Clore, and I'm the CEO of Kentucky Nonprofit Network.
Thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. We appreciate the time and effort you've come to listen to this today. If I could just take a minute of personal privilege, I do have a guest, Kelly Milan, and her husband Bill, that's with us today, and she came up here to work on another bill for us this morning, and they're here. She's runs my office when I'm not at home, so I sure appreciate all of her help. So how did we get here? Why are we here? Why is this deja vu? Why are we going back and doing this contracts bill again? Let me explain kind of how we got here. House Bill 622 it made it out of the House and did not make it through the Senate through the veto proof period, but it did make it after veto proof period, and it was actually probably the last bill that went through A&R in the Senate before we went out of session. You know, I went to Senator McDaniel, which just stepped out of the room a while ago, and he basically said, "Give me agreed to language. We need agreed to language." The House Bill 622 is a contracts bill. I think a very common sense bill. It is the framework for more efficient government. You know, we deal with not millions but billions of dollars today. House Bill 1 of a couple of years ago, billions of dollars, billions. What this does is set a framework and a structure that when someone is going to get money appropriated from us, we are asking them and putting in the force of law that they would have to go through a contracts process and they would have to sit down and explain and understand and kind of go through a template of the contracts process and how they would fill it out, and if there would be a dispute during that process, if something didn't get paid, how that would work. Typically now, we weren't telling people that they didn't have industry standards, like maybe the highway department came to us and said, we already have our standards, we really do this good, we don't want this to interfere. I said, we're not trying to get this to interfere. This is a template, this is a contract that industry standards, whatever you have already, and if it's working, we want it to continue to work. But just for framework, we want to be paid on a 30-day basis. Now, if you turn in a bill and for some reason you turn in 10 items and 2 of those are not fully complete but the other 8 are, right now there is no mechanism, there has been no mechanism to pay that receipt. That invoice comes all the way back and has to start over again. Well, this bill would allow for partial payment. It would allow for those 8 items that were paid to be paid. It also allows for a pause for 10 days if maybe there was a typo or maybe something that didn't get said just exactly right and a number off or something like that. There was a 10-day pause that could be corrected and then go right back into payment. But then if that couldn't be worked out in those 10 days, just that part of it would fall off and would restart over on a 30-day. But the other 8 items would be paid, partial payment. Anybody that has ever tried to negotiate a contract, talk about how you want something to get done, one of the first things you say after you decide, this is what I want my garage built, or I want a roof put on, or I want whatever it is, then you say, well, how am I going to get paid? Do I need to be paid now? Do I need to be paid for the materials now? Do I need to be paid for the labor when? All of that stuff is a contract, whether it's verbal or written. But we want this to be a written contract. And so we went through all this portion of this and got agreed to language. This staff really worked hard to get agreed to language. Payment of 1% per month if it wasn't paid on time. A penalty, some kind of teeth to it. So we got this passed. This bill passed. It did have some appropriation with it. There were some things put on it in the Senate in A&R as it left. The last bill to leave before we left session. It got line item vetoed. Now, it is really disheartening to me, and I'm sure everybody could have a disheartening moment, that we worked that hard, the staff worked that hard, to get agreed to language that was line item vetoed. So we're just going to do it again. Because you can do it in regs, but they don't carry the weight of law. And I'm not talking about this administration or any administration. I'm talking about the future of Kentucky. Taxpayer money that we want to be spent properly. And properly means that you sit down and decide before you get the money how you're going to pay your bills, or it can be paid properly. And you can't negotiate if you don't know how your money's going to come in and pay your bills. That's why we've got nonprofits sitting here, because nonprofits have been hurt more and more over the years of being promised and then not having negotiating power, and everybody feel like they're doing almost a charity to come and help them because they don't know when they might get paid. You can't negotiate that way. There's no way to negotiate a good, solid contract with taxpayer money if you don't know when you're going to get paid. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for allowing me to come and present. I'm going to file this bill again, and I hope we get it done within the veto period so that if it's vetoed, we can override a veto if that's what we want to need to do. Thank you.
Ms. Clore, would you like to add anything to that today, please?
Yes, just a couple of things.
Yes, go ahead.
And certainly our thanks to Representative McPherson for championing this issue and as well as the opportunity to speak today, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of the General Assembly who voted for this bill twice. Certainly we are grateful for your support, but this is a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. Paying folks on time is really important. And I think what we see is, unfortunately, this is a national issue. It's not unique to Kentucky. Kentucky. And what we have in Kentucky, though, is the opportunity to lead the way, where the General Assembly and the administration are working together to show other states how we can correct this issue. So we're very encouraged by that. But as you can see on this first slide, this benefits everybody. Vendors, I'm here representing nonprofits. That's my job, is to help them get paid so that they can deliver the services that your constituents rely on. Certainly it benefits the Commonwealth. These are taxpayer dollars, and then the residents, the people who are paying taxes and the folks who need services. So as Representative McPherson said, certainly a common sense framework for efficient government. And don't have to, you all have these slides, but I think ultimately what was passed are things that we are very grateful. We've been working in good faith with the Finance and Administration Cabinet to continue conversations. We've been working with them prior to this bill being filed in 2025 for over 18 months to try to kind of come to some agreed upon language. So we continue those conversations. And so you can see there are some just common sense, very straightforward aspects of this legislation that we believe, as Representative McPherson said, should be included in statute. So regardless of the future administrations who may be willing to work on these issues, that it's in statute and certainly has the weight of law. So those are some issues that we will continue to work on. And again, we appreciate the work of the Finance Administration, and we hope to meet with them actually in the next little bit to try to work on kind of where we are now in this process. So our post-session progress, again, we continue those discussions. There are draft Finance Administration policies that have FAPs that have been filed through the regulatory process. So that's what we're meeting on, to kind of look and do those align with 622. And if not, how can we address that? And then, as Representative McPherson said, maybe some tweaks to legislation that may need to be filed during the next session. The other thing I want to flag, and we shared an example with you all, one of the things that has become clear to us at Kentucky Nonprofit Network is a lot of times, and many of you who work with charitable nonprofits, maybe on your boards, et cetera, or boards that you serve on, a lot of times we get grants or contracts and it's a celebration, and we might not look at the details of the contract as well as we need to. Many organizations are very savvy at this and others are not. And in some cases, as Representative McPherson alluded to, they don't know that they have the negotiating power that they have. And so we created a contracting checklist to try to help them negotiate the best terms, to quote Representative McPherson, terms they can live with, payment processes that they can live with. So we were delighted to share this contracting checklist, and it's been adopted in other states across the country. So again, Kentucky has the opportunity here with the General Assembly and this administration to lead the way. So with that, I think we'll take any questions, but we look forward to your all's continued support and are very appreciative.
Thank you both today for your presentation. I felt it was really important to bring both of you back before this committee during this interim time. I know that Representative McPherson worked diligently on this bill last year, and I actually kind of misquoted there that it didn't get across the finish line. It actually did, but after the veto-proof period. And I thank all the House and Senate members that actually passed that. Representative McPherson, just for maybe my personal, I don't know how to say it, but was you given any reason exactly why as to this was just a line item, this specific thing was line itemed out of House Bill 622? I mean, what was there anything you were told that this specific part was line itemed out?
So in the veto message, the governor basically said that we weren't talking to the right people. We should have been talking to him directly. We were talking to his cabinet heads. We thought we were talking in good faith. We thought they were going back and forth. We knew that the governor has lots of things on his plate each and every day. We assumed that a framework contracts bill would not be something we would have to go sit in his office and talk about, but I'd be happy to do that. I will say that the one thing that they did say that had maybe something we could address was that they said that because of the national politics going on and the tariffs and not maybe just tariffs, but the coming down of money, federal money, they were afraid that we would write a contract and sign a contract that then the state would be on the hook for federal money that would be swept away from us. But I would say that's for lawyers to decide in a contract on how to write it. This only gets funded if this money comes down and when this money is available to us. That is the whole purpose of the contract, is to write it in that this money is available and when it's available, and that is the devil's in the detail. And that is the purpose of the whole bill, is to write the proper contract that says it doesn't even get paid. If this federal money goes away, then this appropriation goes away. So I'm going to address that head on, but that was the one thing that they did say in the veto message. But other than that, just that we should have been negotiating directly with the governor himself.
Well, I think that if the governor wants us to directly negotiate with him, I think it would be good on his part to negotiate with us at some points along. Representative Lehman, do you have a question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I remember this bill from committee where I actually voted no on it, and I know you guys came and visited me after that. So and I'm glad you brought up. So I was going to ask about the governor's veto message. I think you did summarize that. And I do think there's an important aspect that should be addressed in future legislation here. Is that, I mean, there's a whole regulatory process. A lot of things that get funded through the state do not come from the state treasury. They're federal money, other grants, and so I think we have to acknowledge the importance of that. Again, whether or not that should have been negotiated before session, I don't know. But I think going into next session, that's clearly going to be, I think it's a very important part of that veto message, that we can't put Kentucky in a position where we're paying where the actual money is coming from isn't going to be available. And it's not just federal money, but other sources of grants and funding. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
And if I could just speak to that, I do agree that has some validity to it, but I do also agree that that's why you write the contract. You write the contract in such a way that says if this money is not funded, then you can't have these expectations.
Thank you.
Representative Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the chance and for the bill itself. I was very interested in this bill when it came across. Like many of my colleagues, I represent a district that has a lot of nonprofit partners, and I come from local government, so I understand what that means. I'm curious, in your conversations with cabinet secretaries and whatnot, did agencies indicate any internal metrics for prompt payments? Did they measure track times and efficiencies? And did they indicate any reasons why there were these trends that were probably, I think in one of your presentations in Louisville, Danielle, you talked about some agencies like 6, maybe 9 months delayed. Did they indicate any reasons why?
So when we started this, Chair Petrie and I met with the cabinet heads, and they said that they're always building better technology and always trying to do better. We did have a reporting requirement in this bill, and that's something that they pushed back on, and finally we softened it to the fact they said they could live with it. We had asked them to give a reporting requirement to legislators so that we could not punish anybody, but so that we could see trends. In other words, if we get a call and one of our colleagues say, or one of our constituents say, we're not getting paid on time, and we look at this and says, well, in this silo, in this department, they've been paying 98% of the time. So maybe it is something that you just didn't do, and when you get to the bottom of it, maybe it's because they didn't fill out their paperwork properly. But if it's something where we're showing that they didn't get paid maybe 25 or 30% of the time, then maybe that is on the agency side, and we need to go to that particular department and say, y'all need to tighten yourself up a little bit because you're not meeting these standards that were. So the reporting requirement was to flush out problems before they become problems, not to try to, and then to follow the data, because sometimes people will really say, I'm having a problem, and really they're the problem because they're not doing the proper paperwork. We wanted to be able, and Chair Petrie said that in the meeting. I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, we want to be able to take up for you all when you do your job. But if you don't, we want to be able to show you which department's not doing it so we can target that department and say, you all need to tighten this up because you're getting behind on paying your bills.
And Representative Watkins, I remember your previous role, I think at Metro Government was all about data and processes. So I greatly appreciate that question. Again, I think the Finance Administration, like us throughout these discussions, has sought to find answers themselves because, again, they're dealing with multiple departments. And so I don't want to speak for them. But, and I think to Representative McPherson's comment, which is why, again, we did the checklist, we want to help nonprofits be good partners as well. So I think there's, I don't think it's blame, but enough responsibility to go all the way around. But I will say in our work on this, which unfortunately has been going on for 10 years, this is not a new problem, they're not necessarily trends that we're seeing. And frankly, the hard part about getting the information is fear. Nonprofits, regardless of administration or regardless of cabinet or department, they are afraid to, quote unquote, bite the hand that feeds them. They don't want to raise a red flag that might jeopardize future funding. So they will rarely come forward. And if they do share it with K&N, they will rarely allow us to share the details. So that makes talking about this issue really difficult, as you can imagine. But we are grateful for them willing to do some data collection because we think that's critical to understanding and addressing the root cause of what's really going on.
Well, yeah, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Exactly.
So.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Bivens.
Thank you all for this presentation. I guess the question I'd have to expand on this, I'm greatly in favor of this bill. We are expected as citizens to pay our bills on time. Why should government be held to any other standard? Now, to expand on this, I think part of the problem is oftentimes we hear the stories of $100 hammers and those kind of analogies. Oftentimes it costs government, state government, more money to do certain things because I think we have this reputation. They're going to drag their feet out. In fact, in the past role I was in, there was a building project going on I know of that it was trying to be run around not to go through state government, and an architectural plans being drawn up was around $15,000. When Frankfurt found out about it and it became, no, we got to run it through the government, that bill from the architect alone became $45,000. That was one of the reasons they gave was, well, it may be several months before we collect payment. So I think that's factored in. I would greatly in favor of this bill. I appreciate on this, but I'd like to see you all to even expand it a little more because I think we need to look into a little bit more other problems. You know, we have approved vendors and stuff. We've made a lot of people rich in this state by having government contracts. And we're never going to get government back to where it needs to be and balanced to where we're not running deficit and stuff until the day comes we correct some of these problems. And it's just like that architectural fee. I would love to see this expanded a little more to even include some of that kind of things. So, but thank you all.
So if I could just speak to that just a second, that is the very thing of being able to negotiate in good faith, knowing. So it'll bring more people into the negotiating pool when you know that I can tell you that I can pay this bill when you present it in 30 days. Or if we have a little hiccup on it, I can pay the partial payment of it in 30 days. So then I can bring more people into the pool so I can be more efficient with my negotiating. And that's the whole purpose of the bill.
Well, and to follow up with that, you know, that whole project that I was involved with started out as a $320,000 project. It wasn't much when we start talking about large building projects. But after state government got involved with it, it turned into a $598,000 project was the total cost. That's almost double. And this goes on every day. Every day. We have got to correct some of these problems. So thank you all very much on this.
Senator Maiden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that Miss Clore is from my hometown. She kind of don't tell everybody, but I'm proud of her, so I'll let that be known. She probably don't feel that same way about me, but her parents and I are very good friends. So anyway, speaking on your partial payments on your contracts and stuff, so federal government, when they award grants and those type things, they do partial payments, 30-day payments, CDBG, ARC, USDA. Even when I was mayor before I came here, we got I forget the House bill that you all had allocated money for cities and counties. Was it 7 or 1? I forget what it was. But anyway, that was handled that same way. We would submit invoices every 30 days. Our engineer would sign off. I would sign the document. So I would assume when you're submitting your documents, somebody's signing them and that is being held responsible. So I don't understand why we can't do it the same way.
No, and I think in our good faith negotiations with the Finance Administration Cabinet, that was actually something they flagged that they could improve on and really take advantage of. That I think you alluded to this. Sometimes it's one thing that hasn't been signed or one receipt that's not been attached that shouldn't hold up the entire payment. So we're, again, very grateful that they flagged that. And are to our knowledge, we're seeing that included in these regs and then ultimately want to codify in statute. But yes, I mean, and I think the other piece at the federal level, they allow for some upfront payment, that it's not fully reimbursable, not all of it, but a small percentage of it. For many nonprofits who don't have access to capital, et cetera, that is challenging for them to ramp up while they wait for all these details necessarily to come together. So that's an excellent point. And again, we're very grateful for them including that, and we're excited to see that come to fruition for sure.
I'll just follow up.
Yes, please go ahead.
I know Representative put a lot of work in this, and Danny did too. And he's I really hope that we'll all get behind it and push this bill through. I mean, we're talking about nonprofits here that serve a lot of good things in our state, and I think we all need to get behind it and try to get it passed before the veto session.
Thank you very much, Senator. Good comment. Seeing no other comments or questions, I want to thank everyone today for being here with us. Thank you all for your presentation here today.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, committee.
Appreciate everyone's time. Our next meeting will be Thursday, August the 21st at 12:30 p.m., and that will be conducted at the Kentucky